What's poppin', sinners? It's me, MT, and welcome back to the Heavy Spoiler Show, y'all. Now let's go on ahead and talk about the wild ride of a masterpiece that is Ryan Coogler's new movie, Sinners, and how the movie's messaging can help explain the film's ending and post-credit scene. So let us sink our teeth into this bad boy, my sitting nerd babies. Also, in case you couldn't already tell, major spoilers for Sinners ahead, so, there is that. The channel is called Heavy Spoilers, by the way, so I don't know why people still get surprised at the spoilers. But anyway, Sinners stars Michael B. Jordan as Elijah Smoke Moore and Michael C. Jordan as Elias Stack Moore. Michael A. Jordan couldn't make it in the film due to Michael B. Jordan absorbing Michael A. Jordan in the womb, making Michael B. Jordan the more powerful and dominant twin. Michael B. would go on to absorb Michael C. on the last day of shooting this film.
There can be only one.
Hence why Michael C. never showed up to the premiere. Anyways, the year is 1932, and these two twins return back to their hometown of Clarksdale, Mississippi, after being away for some time. After the two served in World War I, they decided to transition to a life of crime and robbery. And one of the last times they were actually in Clarksdale, Mississippi was for the purposes of conducting an armed robbery of Clarksdale's First National Bank, as detailed by this February 9th, 1924 article from the Clarksdale Herald, which was posted on the official Sinners profile on Spotify. And after stealing a significant sum from this bank, Smoke and Stack would then head to Chicago to work alongside the notorious Al Capone until his arrest in the late 1920s. And with Capone now gone, after helping him do crimes for 7 years, the two would make the news yet again on October 5th, 1932, when the Chicago Daily Times would report tensions rising between the Irish mob and Italian mafia after Smoke and Stack would rob both gangs of their money and illegal stashes of alcohol, leading to both gangs accusing and attacking one another for their losses. All while the twins would then bring their score back to Clarksdale, Mississippi, with the hopes of starting up a local juke joint in the area. And just in case you don't already know, juke joints were the names of black-owned music clubs where African Americans would go dancing, gambling, and having themselves a drunk old merry old time while listening to blues music. Smoke and Stack envisioned creating a club called Club Juke and decided to buy a sawmill to serve as the venue. However, the seller would end up being the grand dragon of the local Ku Klux Cucks named Hogwood, played by actor David Maldonado, who was secretly trying to set Smoke and Stack up by having them assemble a bunch of black people to this juke joint so they could murder them all inside the next day. Smoke doesn't learn this until very much later on in the film when the vampires give him a heads up, which then leads Smoke to literally smoking the KKK. Also, I really love how Ryan Coogler straight up names these two main characters after their personalities, with Smoke Moore being the protective, reserved, and cold-blooded twin ready to smoke anybody that gets in his way, and Stack Moore having the gift of gab, which helps Stack Moore stack up the right people to help him stack up some paper at Club Juke. And I also really appreciate how Coogler has Smoke wear blue to match his cold personality, while Stack wears red, both showcasing his warmer personality and acting as visual foreshadowing for his turn to a blood-loving vampire. And along with Smoke Moore and Stack Moore is their cousin Sammy Preacher Boy Moore, played by R&B artist Miles Caton in his first ever film role. And this is after having gone on tour at the age of 16 to sing in the background of R&B singer Her, and also becoming a fairly popular gospel singer himself. And to prepare for this role, Miles Caton had to learn how to physically play the blues over the course of 2 months before shooting, developing some crazy calluses on his fingers after practicing 5 to 6 hours every single day. Sammy Moore is the son of a preacher who preaches staunchly against the devil's blues music, and this is before Sammy is scooped up by his cousins Elijah and Elias to go perform at their juke joint to be called Club Juke. And much like Smoke and Stack's names, it also seems like Sammy's name appears to have a bit of significance to his character as well, as there appears to be some parallels between Sammy's story and that of his namesake, the famous biblical prophet Samuel. In the book of 1 Samuel, we learn of a woman named Hannah who desperately prays to God to become pregnant with a child, dedicating her child's entire life to God's service if he could hook her up with a baby. And hook her up, God did, and Hannah, true to her word, would give that son directly to a priest named Eli to take care of him for the rest of his life. Then the story goes that one night when Samuel was 12, he heard a voice calling out to him in the night. And Samuel, being a rational thinking 12-year-old, kept thinking that it was Eli, and he kept showing up to Eli's room like, "Why do you keep calling me, you big Bible nerd?" And Eli was like, boy, stop waking my ass up. I ain't calling your name, you dingus. Then, after the third time, Eli was like, time out. I think that it may actually be God himself trying to call to you. So the next time you hear someone calling out to you, tell God that your ass is alert and listening and let me get some sleep. And that's exactly what Samuel did. He opened his ears and heeded to his divine calling. And that was his first step to becoming a prophet. And I find that this reflects Sammy more in Sinners as well, as Sammy too was expected by his religious family to dedicate his talents to serving his church. And much like how Samuel was mistaken when he thought his divine calling was coming from Eli, Sammy believes that a life playing music and getting involved with the dishonest lifestyle of Elijah and Elias was his true calling. But it's only when both Samuel and Sammy start listening to the right voice that they actually begin to heed their true divine callings, with Sammy's divine calling being to play music that can connect souls throughout time. But not only this, but in the biblical tale, God tells Samuel to inform Eli that because Eli's two sons kept living corrupt and ungodly lives by stealing from God and having sexual relations out of wedlock, oh my goodness, I would never. So stupid. God put a curse on Eli's family by having his two sons killed in battle, ending his family line. I believe that director Ryan Coogler might have taken some inspiration from Eli's sons when crafting the characters Elijah and Elias. I mean, not only do they have Eli in their names, but the names of Eli's sons in the Bible were literally Hophni and Phinehas. I don't know what the fuck a Hophni is, but that was his name. Don't come to me. But the name Hophni means strong, hard-fisted, or a fighter, which perfectly describes Smoke. And the name Phinehas means serpent's mouth, which seems to point to Stack's deceitful and manipulative serpent's tongue. A tongue that Stack would unfortunately ultimately use to try to convince the Club Juke survivors to join Team Vampire. However, I believe that Sammy's character is not just inspired by biblical legend, but also blues legend, specifically the legend of blues icon Robert Johnson, a man who apparently would get booed out of juke joints in his early career until one day he randomly showed up playing and singing the blues at a ridiculously high level. And because people were so damn confused as to how Robert Johnson got so good so damn quickly, a legend began to form around Johnson that claimed that he actually met up with the devil himself at the center of a crossroads and sold his soul for the ability to play the guitar. And ever since that particular legend was born, there has always been this association with blues music and the supernatural. And I mean, hell, the show Supernatural literally had an episode inspired by Robert Johnson's dark legend. So that's how you know that it's some real supernatural business. I hear Supernatural the documentary. Just kidding. And as a huge nerd, this is one of my favorite particular tidbits about this particular legend, but Robert Johnson's legend was actually central to the formation of the lore to one of my favorite video game series of all time, Kingdom Hearts, specifically with how major moments in the lives of the series protagonists usually happen at a crossroads of some sort. A tradition that actually started at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts' Chain of Memories, when Sora meets a man in a black coat that promises to give him something valuable at the cost of something he holds dear. An exchange that would ultimately cause Sora's past to be rewritten and his soul to be completely warped. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, this Robert Johnson myth is central to the dark narrative of Sinners, connecting blues music to the realms of the paranormal. Music is what Sammy regards as both his life's true calling as well as the source of his true inner light. Hence why we see and hear Sammy singing "This Little Light of Mine" in the movie's post-credit scene. Because while Sammy's light does indeed attract shadows, like it attracts dark vampiric forces, Sammy still decides to let his inner light continue to shine, even after his gift has brought a ton of suffering, pain, and loss to Club Juke's doorstep by the end of Sinner's tragic tale. Because even though Sammy had a unique and highly valued supernatural power as the descendant of West African griots who could also pierce the veil of life and death to connect the souls of the past, present, and future, he wasn't about to let the greedy hands of dark vampiric devils make him too fearful to use his gift to bring joy and connect with countless souls through music. Because at its core, Sinners is a tale about being true to one's own identity and not letting outside forces rob you of the light that makes you special and causes you to shine brightly. Not just for Sammy Moore, but also for Smoke and Stack Moore as well. The main purpose of the film's main villain Remick, played excellently by actor Jack O'Connell, is to try to steal the light from all three of our protagonists, aiming to steal the very black culture that Smoke and Stack wanted their people to celebrate in their own safe space away from judgmental racist eyes. And this is, of course, a clear metaphor to how Caucasian people have routinely stolen from Black culture and appropriated Black culture for themselves in their own ways throughout history, like they have in the realms of fashion, slang, and of course, music. Blues music itself, despite its African American roots, would ultimately be appropriated by white Americans. Because without the blues, there would be no country music, no rock and roll, no jazz, no bluegrass, no R&B, no hip hop, no funk, no soul, no nothing. Blues music is quite literally the blueprint to so many musical genres that we know of today. And that is why Remick wants to control the powerful Black music and Black joy coming out of Club Juke so badly. He knows that if he can control Sammy's powers as well as Smoke and Stack's people, he can have enough influence to change the future of the world itself. And this is also the symbolic significance of us seeing the native Choctaw tribe chase a burning Remick down at the beginning of the movie. Because Native Americans know all too well about having their lands and people taken over and dominated by white wolves in sheep's clothing. So naturally, they are the first to take action when they detect a new breed of blood-spilling culture vultures trying to suck the life out of innocent people. Because much like how the West Africans had their griots, the Choctaw had talented musicians called firekeepers that had powers just as powerful as Sammy's. And because of that, they've been dealing with vampires like Remick, trying to assimilate their culture and people as well for quite a few years now. At least as early as August 1st, 1911 anyway, which is when we see the Boston Daily Journal post an article titled "Grisly Discovery at Boston Harbor, Immigrant Ship Wrecked, No Survivors." Apparently, the previous morning, some dock workers discovered the scene of a bloody massacre aboard a completely abandoned ship with nothing but blood and ash on the floors and walls remaining. And not long after this discovery, a nearby woman apparently discovers a man with smoking skin running away from the boat, with this man being none other than Remick himself, especially considering the fact that Irish music could be heard playing loudly from the boat before everyone was consumed by the bloodthirsty Remick not too long before. Then, for about 20 years since the shipwreck, Remick has been running amok in the States doing his vampire thing, until he tries to eat some Choctaw. But the Choctaw don't play that shit and chase Remick down to a house where two clan members live. And to their credit, the Choctaw do try to warn the racists that they're harboring a vampire, but those clueless Ku Klux fucks did not listen. So the Choctaw were like, "Well, we tried, good luck, white people," and left before the clan members are converted to vampires. Then, after Sammy lights up Club Juke with a musical number that transcends the bounds of time, this leads Remick and his vampire buddies to the doorsteps of Club Juke, where they proceed to turn all of Smoke and Stack's friends into vampires or victims one by one. Starting with Hailie Steinfeld's Mary before she inevitably turns her beloved Stack himself, after she spits in his mouth. That was weird. Then, after Grace Chow, played by Quantico actress Lin Jun Lee, invites the swarm of vampires inside of Club Juke so that she can prevent them from killing her daughter, pretty much everyone but Smoke and Sammy are killed. Sammy is almost killed by Remick and his horde until Sammy decides to bash Remick in the head with his guitar, causing the silver plate inside the guitar to lodge in Remick's head, killing him before the sunlight destroys his body completely. And I love this moment so much because it is not a prayer to the Lord that ends up defeating this dark demon, but the very instrument that Sammy was called to play that would end up delivering him from evil. It was Sammy's light that actually destroyed this vampire before the sun did, which is why the "This Little Light of Mine" song in the post-credit scene was an excellent symbolic choice. However, during the film's mid-credits, we jump forward 60 years in the future to the year 1992, where an older Sammy Moore is playing inside of his own club called Perlene's, named after the woman that he loved and lost at Club Juke that fateful night, played incredibly by actress Jamie Lawson. Actual blues legend Buddy Guy plays an older Sammy Moore who has enjoyed decades of being a blues legend, but is surprised to see the young faces of his old friends Stack and Mary, two people that he thought had died along with the rest of the vampires that night. But it turns out Smoke, being the protective brother that he always was, didn't have it in him to kill Stack, but made him promise to stay away from Sammy for as long as he lived, a promise Stack had been able to keep up until that point. However, smelling that Sammy was close to death himself, Smoke offers Sammy a chance at immortality as a vampire. But Sammy rejects his offer, saying that he's already lived a long and happy life, doing what he loves to do and letting his light shine. So he wasn't about to let vampires have his light right at the very end of his life. Better to die holding on to your true identity than to live in service to the calling of another, because betraying your true self is the realest sin of all. But all in all, I found Sinners to be a cinematic triumph of filmmaking. This is the most intense I have ever seen Michael B. Jordan in a role, and he does a phenomenal job playing two different characters. Like, I was legit like halfway through the movie until my brain realized that there actually wasn't two Michael B. Jordans that exist in the world. Like, Ryan Coogler makes the visual illusion of smoke and stack absolutely seamless, allowing them to share the same frame of a shot without even a second of that weird uncanny valley feeling that you get when there's an obvious green screen being used. It reminded me a lot of Marvel's Moon Knight TV series, particularly how episode 5 of that series perfectly layered Oscar Isaac in as two separate but physically interacting characters. So freaking good, man. And of course, we gotta give huge props to R&B singer Miles Caton for knocking his first ever acting role out of the damn park and singing his soul out for the screen. Like, this boy has some real talent, and I suspect his music career will take off exponentially following this movie. And good lord, was Delroy Lindo hilarious as Delta Slim. Every scene that he was in had me cracking up, man. Like, such a perfect decision to cast him. And of course, Hailie Steinfeld was absolutely flawless in this film, as she is in all things. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in love with her and have a Hailie Steinfeld shrine in my closet that I store with my Josh Allen voodoo dolls. Like, she really truly went in for this movie. Like, there was an emotional scene between her and Michael B. Jordan's Stack where the two basically admit their love for one another that truly showcases how brilliant of an actress Hailie Steinfeld is. Like, you could truly feel the pain that she felt about her forbidden love, which underscored her brilliant transformation into a cold-blooded bloodsucker. And don't even get me started on Wonwi Mosaku, man. Like, get that woman an Oscar nomination for real. She was just as incredible as Hailie was when it came to expressing deep sorrow and anger. Like, after seeing her in this movie, I hope to God that Marvel is planning on giving Hunter B-15 a more prominent role in Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, because not utilizing a talent like that would be an absolute waste. We cannot forget to give props to actress Lee Jun-Lee for her portrayal of the powerful and protective Grace Chow. That lady was a little badass who was not afraid of going down fighting a legion of vampires if it meant keeping her daughter from the same fate that her husband suffered. And of course, Jamie Lawson was also absolutely fantastic herself in both her singing and acting performances. She's got a great set of pipes on her. But yeah, I'm beyond happy that this movie exists and is getting near universal praise because director and writer Ryan Coogler truly deserves it. Bro is one of the coolest dudes in Hollywood that truly values cinema, and he is beyond deserving of all the flowers that he's getting. Like, this dude straight up made a masterpiece, and I am so glad that Warner Brothers gave him full rights to the movie, because this movie is all about maintaining your identity and keeping your art your own. And it's so great that Warner Brothers has allowed Ryan Coogler to keep this important piece of cinema history as his full intellectual property. But anyways, that is it for this analysis of the ending of Sinners. Let us know what you guys thought of this movie in the comment section down below. But like always, you can follow me at Mastertainment on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, wherever I am on the internet. Most importantly, follow Heavy Spoilers here on YouTube by hitting the subscribe button and maybe even hitting that like button if you guys enjoyed the video. But like always, I have been MT, you guys have been amazing, and I'll catch you Sinners later. Bye.